Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Our recitation, Manj Mahalla Panjwa. Sabh Kich Ghar Mah bahar nahi, bahar ਢੋਲੇ so ਭਰਮ ਪੁਲਾਹੀ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦੀ ਜਿਨੀ ਅੰਤਰ ਪਾਇਆ ਸੋ ਅੰਤਰ ਬਾਹਿਰ ਸੁਹੇਲਾ ਜੀਓ छिम छिम वरसे अमृत धारा मन पीवे सुन शब्द बिचारा आनंद विनोद करे दिन राती सदा सदा हर केला जियो जन्म जन्म का विछड़ा मिलया साध कृपा ते सूका हरिया सुमत पाए नाम ध्याए गुरमुख होए मेला जियो जल तरंग ज्यों जल है समाया त्यों ज्योति संग ज्योत मिलाया कहो नानक भ्रम कटे केवाड़ा बहुड़ न होया जौला जियो. So in this passage, taking it from the top, Sabh Kich Ghar Mah bahar nahi, everything is in your midst. That is to say, within the mind. There is nothing beyond. Sabh Kich Ghar Mah bahar nahi. Looking beyond only leads to delusion. Bahar tole so param pulahi. And with the insight of Guru wisdom, those who have found the self within are at peace, not only with themselves, but with others. Gur Prasadi, through Gur wisdom, through the insight of the Gur, jini antar paya, antar, inside, so antar bahir sohela jiyo. This is speaking to a balance that one finds. And then it speaks in terms of Amrit Tara, that eternal wisdom. Amrit, of course, means immortal. Mrit is death. Signifies not death. Here it is a signifier for that eternal wisdom that is always there, like a stream. It flows steadily. Chim chim varse amrit tara. And man pive sun sabad bechara. Bechar, this is the narrative of the sabad, the enlightener's discourse, and the mind is drinking from this wisdom stream. Man pive sun sabad bechara. And because it has imbibed or drunk of this wisdom, it remains blissful and full of play with the Har self, with the Har. If you recall, in the previous passage, we were talking about a relationship that is inextricably woven. Here, what we are talking about is being playmates with the creative force. Anad, Binod, Kare Din Rati. Binod, playfulness, blissful joy in playing with the Creator. What does that mean? It simply means being creative in the service of humanity. And there is a reminder here. Janam janam ka vichhada milya. So, this is union after a long separation. Through the compassion of the Guru Enlightener, Sadh Kirpate, Sukha Harya. Sukha, one that had withered away. By being Guru guided, the mind finds wisdom. And then they describe the state. Jal tarang jyon jale samaya. It is like a wave merging back into the water. So does the light of the Spirit, of which we are the essence. It blends with that Supreme Spirit. And in the end, Nanak says that the doors of perception are opened and the self-perpetuating delusion that we live under is lifted. Kaho Nanak, param, delusion, katte, is dispelled, is scattered. Kivad baurna, kivad, the shutter of this delusion. Baurna hoyo, jaula jiyo. that self-perpetuating delusion comes to an end. So, if you notice at the very outset, what is being said is, Sabh Kich Ghar Mah bahar nahi. How do we interpret this? One suggestion is to think of this as saying that the Supreme Being is really not an idea that one adopts from the outside, but it is the self that is within that one has to develop. Because you know that more often than not, the Supreme Being is an idea that we inherit from our environment. It's like being a Sikh is an idea that we've inherited. We haven't become Sikhs yet. We were just born to Sikh parents, which is just sheer happenstance. Our consent is not required for that. It happens. And what does it do? Birth merely provides the formality of being a Sikh. It's just a formality. It requires no more than an adherence to an inherited belief system. You get a belief system, you adopt it, you have some conventions, some cultural notions, and bingo, you're a Sikh. You're indoctrinated, imprinted, shaped by Sikh ideology, belief, and practice. So in other words, you have the official insignia of being a Sikh. That, Guruji is telling us, is a delusion. Whatever is received from the outside. Bahar tole, so param pulahe. Being a Sikh is an inner journey. And that is why it says, Gur prasadi jini antar paya, so antar bahar sohela jiyo. Those who find the self and develop it inside are in supreme bliss and balance. So being a Sikh, since this is the context of Sikhi that we are talking about, is an inner journey. And it rarely progresses in a straight line, to be sure. It's more like a meandering, or shall we say like a downward spiral into the core of one's being. That, how a spiral works. It brings us back to the same spot over and again. We've seen the landscape, except that when you come back, it reveals a deeper shade and a deeper meaning of the truth that is always present. So at some level, what is being said is that truth is already homogenized in us, much like butter is homogenized in milk and flint is homogenized in wood. So the implicit knowledge of our connection to the truth is already embedded in us. Jim jim varse amrit tara. It takes constant churning to bring it forth. So from a Sikhi perspective, this passage is emphasizing that there is a difference, a dynamic tension, if you will, between adopting a belief, in other words, just being born a Sikh and wearing the badge of being a Sikh, and developing as a Sikh. We have to develop into being Sikhs. And if you recall the previous passage where we spoke of a master-slave relationship, a Sikh is to be a slave to hukam. And hukam is dynamic creativity. It is not static belief. So therefore, it cannot come from the outside. It has to arise from the inside. And this passage emphasizes that there is a need for us to become a playmate or co-creators with hukam. Anad binod kare din rati, sada sada har kela jiyo. So that's really how we have to develop, to become co-creators with hukam. So the gap here that this passage is stressing between the outside and the inside is the gap between, as has been said, acquired belief and authentic faith, between just acquiring meaning as opposed to getting verifiable experience of hukam, between a passive internalization, which is what happens when you acquire belief, versus an active absorption of your interaction with nature. It's the difference between acting on handed down cultural scripts. That's what's happening. What Guruji is asking us to do is to script our own story. We are the scripters of our own destiny, because the Har is the essence within us. We have to develop that. So, in short, this is a conflict between the limiting and circumscribing demands of our empirical self, our cultural self or ego consciousness, and the compulsion of our spirit, the Jyot Sarup, to soar and transcend these limitations, to be freed from the very restraints that we need that tether us to Haume. It's paradoxical. And this is the moment for us. This life is the moment for us, which has come after a long, long separation or evolution. Janam janam ka vichhadya milya. Now is the moment where this cosmic drama has to play out in our lives, where head and heart have to be integrated into a harmonious whole so that we can see reality for what it is. With those thoughts, until the next time, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.